Minimum wage has always been a dynamic part of U.S. economic policy. In 1938, the Fair Labor Standards Act set the minimum wage at 25 cents an hour.
Considered and conservative measures will likewise be proposed within a few days that will attempt to give to the industrial workers of the country a more fair wage return, to prevent cutthroat competition, to prevent unduly long hours for labor, and at the same time to encourage each industry to prevent overproduction.
Compared to 2014 standards, this is worth about $4.19 per hour. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt did this in an attempt to bring the U.S. out of the Great Depression. Since 1938, minimum wage has been on constant rise, as seen in these graphs, with the last national increase being $7.25 per hour in 2009. In 2014, some argue minimum wage needs to be raised because a large majority of the working population earning minimum wage is living on or under the poverty line. Others say raising minimum wage will hurt the economy.
According to a Washington Post poll, 66% of people support raising the rate. Of those who are for the increase, 34% support up to a $9 rate, 25% support between $9 and $10, and 18% more than $10. The White House endorsed Harkin's proposal of upping the minimum wage to $10.10. That includes a fix that would adjust the rate for inflation so that wages would automatically increase in the future.
One argument for raising minimum wage is that it will be good for families.
No one in America should work full-time and live in poverty.
The average minimum wage worker is 25 or over and needs to support themselves and possibly their family members. With additional family income, people would have more flexibility in their lives. This includes options like retirement, going back to school, or starting a family. In America, one would see revival of middle-class organizations. Raising minimum wage would increase income going into households and spending going into businesses.
On the other hand, raising minimum wage would hurt small businesses and jobs. Ordering businesses to raise minimum wage will result in increased prices to offset higher labor costs. Small businesses would have to downsize because they would be at a financial disadvantage, having to pay so many workers. The unemployment rates and discouraged worker levels would rise because the marginal cost would not meet marginal benefits.
Another popular argument is that this will be good for the economy. Raising minimum wage would put money back into the hands of the people who could spend it rather than the 1% who tend to hoard their wealth. Spending would increase and the wealth would be distributed more evenly. Government could then redirect their funds to other programs rather than social programs.
Some say that raising minimum wage would increase cost-push inflation. If businesses are forced to pay higher wages, they will need to increase prices of products to regain the profits lost.
Finally, raising minimum wage could essentially decrease the cycle of debt from minimum wage workers. This would give them a better chance at raising their standard of living and eventually entering the revitalized middle class. While this may hurt business productivity, recently these levels have been at all-time highs. However, reliance on welfare programs have risen since the most recent recession. Raising minimum wage would give workers the opportunity to provide for themselves.
Lastly, minimum wage workers would no longer feel obligated to pursue a higher level job. Making entry-level jobs higher paying increases the risk that workers will get stuck in them for longer instead of moving on to something more rewarding. This will not solve the problem because minimum wage jobs would be overcrowded and prices would continue to rise. Minimum wage will have to keep rising to compensate for the lack of upper-level employment.
When you raise the price of employment, guess what happens? You get less of it. At a time when the American people are still asking the question, where are the jobs, why would we want to make it harder for small employers to hire people?
Average wages have barely budged. Too many Americans are working harder than ever just to get by, let alone get ahead. And that's been true since long before the recession hit. That's why we've got to build an economy that works for everybody, not just a fortunate few. We've got to restore opportunity for all. The notion that no matter who you are or how you started out, with hard work and responsibility, you can get ahead in America.